Okay, so welcome to our ongoing series of webinars. We do webinars here at SOS every week. We do many webinars, but on Thursdays we do this webinar, which is designed for partners and prospective partners. So the audience for today's webinar is IT solution providers, MSPs, VARs, companies that are in the business of selling IT solutions and products and services, and that are looking at potentially adding online backup as an additional product to their product SKU, or potentially as a standalone offering to their customer base. In terms of the structure of the webinar, it will sometimes go for up to an hour. Usually there's a roughly 30-35 minute presentation, and then after that there's a Q&A section, and the agenda's there on the screen. We'll go brief overview of SOS as a company. We'll then turn to look at the backup and DR industry as it has existed, look at some of the movements that are occurring in the industry as the industry transitions from traditional hardware-based backup to IP-based backup, or online backup, or cloud backup, or SaaS, whatever you want to call it. We'll then look at SOS's technology specifically, and then onto our partner model. So we'll look at how does our technology work and how can it benefit your customers and clients, and then specifically how can you benefit from being an SOS partner. And really what this part of the webinar is about is showing you how you can drive recurring profitable revenue from online backup. And that's really the goal of today's webinar, is to give you all a better perspective of whether or not you can make money in this industry and what sort of revenue might you be able to make. And there are three outcomes for the webinar, if you like. First thing is we're raffling off a Kindle, as we do each week, and at the end of the webinar there'll be instructions on how to go and to enter that raffle for the Kindle and to get the promotion code, which you'll need. Second thing is, and I hope by the end of the webinar you'll see the value of calling in and talking to one of our partner specialists about building a return on investment model for your business in online backups. So basically, I'll show you some examples of this, but one of the things that the biggest call to action that I've got for everybody here today is, if you are interested in this space and learning more, the best step you can take is to get us to build a revenue model for you. And then the third thing is a mock-up. Our team can also work with you to give you an idea of what your marketing slicks might be able to look like, and what a fully white-labeled and rebranded online backup product might look like for you and your business. So those are the key things I'm hoping you'll be able to get out of this. And okay, we've had just some interference on the line. Can you just confirm that everybody can still hear, that audio is still coming through clearly? I just got a comment here that some people are having some trouble. Okay, great. Thanks everybody for that. Terrific. Okay, so with that we'll dive in. And then just one item of housekeeping is that it's often we've already had lots of comments here by participants about the audio, which is terrific. One of the best ways we've found to keep these webinars dynamic and relevant to you, so we can answer your questions, is not to wait to the Q&A at the end to ask questions, but ask questions throughout. So as content's coming up throughout the presentation, please ask questions if you've got them that's relevant to the content. And we'll actually stop and discuss things in more detail when people are asking a lot of questions about the slides, and that's usually one of the best ways of getting information out of the webinar. Okay, so who's SOS? Most of you are probably pretty familiar with us. We've been in the online backup industry quite a long time. We founded back in 2001, and we've always focused exclusively on the online backup market, which is now known by various names, whether it's SaaS backup or cloud backup or IP backup or remote backup. But it's back then it was a small market. It's now a very large and rapidly growing market. Our focus is twofold. The first thing that we attempt to do, and we've always laid claim to, is to be the technology leader of the space. So to that end, we spend millions a year on R&D, and we continue to be at the cutting edge of online backup technology and continue to win a lot of awards, which we're very proud of. So we're very proud of our technology. The second thing we do, which is very different, is that we're almost exclusively a platform provider. So our goal is to work with partners like yourself. We're extremely channel focused. And so we provide a platform as a service to you, and then support you in going out to your customers to sell your online backup solution. In terms of our size and depth and competency and capability, we've got more than 200 employees worldwide. We're 4 major locations, and then a very large infrastructure company. We've got more than 3 million customers and nearly 10 million PCs being protected by our software around the world. And then this last point is another one. It's very interesting to you, I think, as partners, which is that we've grown 300% since April 2009. That's not about our success. That's about your success. That's about our partner success. We only grow on the basis of our partners succeeding in the online backup space. So we're very proud of that growth number, because what it indicates is that our partners are doing really well selling online backup, and that's really what today's webinar is about. Is if you've got any reservations or questions about getting into the market, today you've got an opportunity to talk to the CEO and tell me what you think, whether it's good, bad, or other. But it's we find these forums to be really useful in allowing people like yourselves to really crystallize their thinking about whether or not this is something they want to dive into. I think we've covered most of this slide. Just positioning us in the market, you're probably familiar with some of the brands on the screen here. We're very much a small business-focused company. So we focus on selling to the small business market directly. We've got a very small direct business, but our primary focus, as I said, is through the channel. We've got consumer solutions, and we've got partners who focus on consumers and home users, and we've got enterprise solutions, and we've got partners who focus on enterprise customers. But our real wheelhouse is the small business market and the VARs and MSPs and service providers that serve the small business market. I think, and that's borne out when you look at, say, the product and its features. They're very SMB focused. And then this slide's really, at a high level, what this webinar and what this company is about. We take all of SOS's technology and infrastructure and capability as represented on the left-hand side there. We then take your business, your product offering, your marketing, your sales approach, and we come up with a customized, fully white-labeled product for you to sell to your customers. And we've got many, many, many different ways of scaling up and slicing and dicing our technology and product offerings for our partners. We try and tailor that to match exactly the market you're in, whether you're a small computer break-fix shop, whether you're an MSP, whether you're a large ISP, whether you're a large software company with millions of users. We have many partners in all of those categories. But the end result is exactly the same, which is it's all about driving highly profitable, recurring, predictable revenue to you and your business. And on the screen, just a few examples. We'll see a lot more of this later in the presentation, but you can see here some SOS technology in the bottom left, and then a whole bunch of examples of fully white-labeled product, whether that's a marketing slick. Here's a product brochure in the middle, and then you can see some examples of rebranded software. Major Geeks, very well-known download website, and SwingTech's a medium-sized MSP. But we'll see a lot more examples of the branding towards the end of the presentation. All right, so let's turn now and look at what the DR market looks like today from a technology standpoint, and then also from your perspective as technology providers serving that market. When we analyze the market, we see different approaches to backup in the three market horizontals of consumer, small business, and enterprise. When we say consumer, we're talking about micro business as well, so 1 or 2 seats. Small business, 2 seats to 500, and enterprise 500 plus. In that home user and consumer market, presumably some of the partners online serve that market, or maybe you've got a few clients that are home users and consumers, in your business. There's really been no systematic backup embedded in computing culture in the home user or consumer space. Our market research shows year on year that less than 10% of consumers actually back up in any sort of regular way. Where they are, they're usually using some sort of combination of hardware and software, often a external USB key or an external USB hard disk drive. But generally, there's no backup, and where there is a backup, there's certainly not off-site backup in use. Go through a small business, there's nearly always backup in place. Not often off-site backup. So this has been a real pain point for the backup and DR industry over the last 20 years, is that whether the backup that was deployed was tape-based or disk-based in recent years, it was very rarely off-site backup. And there were a lot of problems with the backup solutions designed around what we call or refer to as these centrally architected backup technologies, so disk and tape in particular. And it was usually a three-way approach where you'd have a hardware component, a relatively expensive software component, and then a labor component. Hardware was always the tape or disk array. That might be a $5,000 unit. Software was usually something like Backup Exec or software that could interact intelligently with tape or the disk-based backup hardware that was being used, and labor, which was often one of the uncosted components of a backup solution. The labor cost was actually usually one of the most important costs in the equation. And Brian Watts here asks, will pricing be discussed in this webinar? Brian, yes, it will later on. So this labor cost is a very important component when looking at traditional backup solutions, particularly as it relates to VARs and MSPs and IT shops, because as we've found working with our partner base is external IT consultants often bear a lot of the cost associated with running these solutions. So if you're maintaining a tape-based backup system for a client, you're often not actually being able to bill for all the time that you're spending on that solution. So a very common story we get is, yeah, client's entire operation melted down. We had to do a complete environment restoration. It went for 3 days, and we only got paid for about half a day's work. So that backup is not only a lot of problems with the technology, but just as an IT service provider, backup is often not a significant revenue source, and even if it is a revenue source, it's often not a profit center at all. It's often a cost center, is what we hear time and time again from our partners. And then if you look on the direct side of the labor cost, the actual business itself has very significant costs in running these centrally architected backup solutions. Again, I'm mainly talking about tape, but disk as well, in that if, for example, somebody is taking that tapes off site, there's a lot of labor that goes into rotating tapes, verifying recoverability of tapes, taking them off site, etc. So labor is very much an important cost component of existing and traditional backup solutions. And in the enterprise space, it's a similar structure. It's still hardware, software, and labor, albeit on a larger scale, but then there will often also be a separate and fourth cost component in an enterprise deployment associated with the original DR design and deployment. And that can often run into the tens of thousands of dollars for an enterprise disaster recovery plan to be put together. Contrast all of that with the way the technology works and looks like in this new cloud computing world that we're working in. Becomes your company's online backup, whether that's Tom Power's online backup or Todd Swank or Guy Herald, just to pick on some audience members. And we still have all those components of the hardware, the software, the service, and the support, but it all gets wrapped up into one complete software as a services solution that you can deliver to your customers over the wire. It's set and forget. It runs daily. Very little operational cost for you to run, and usually a far lower purchase cost for your customers. So everybody's happy. That's the theory anyway. Eric Drake's just asked, in the slide you displayed your logo larger in size over 3 other logos. Were you comparing solution to that of Carbonite, iDrive, etc., or were you revealing that Carbonite, iDrive, etc. are actually branded SOS solutions? No, they're definitely not branded SOS solutions, Eric. Those are other well-known brands in the online backup space. They all pretty much focus exclusively on selling direct. So out of that collective group, we are the largest channel-focused online backup company in the world. So we've got more than 1,000 partners and millions of users on our network through our partners, whereas those other brands you're talking about mainly focus on just selling under their own brand. They might offer an affiliate program and offer you, say, 5% commission, something like that. Whereas what we focus on doing is setting you up in your own online backup business or adding online backup into the array of services and products that you sell to your customers. And then just going back to the discussion of the fall of tape backup, if you will, there's a lot of data available on the collapse of tape sales, but this particular survey from the Santa Clara group who track this in particular shows that tape backup of sales have fallen from nearly $3 billion 2 years ago to $1.5 billion this year. And at that rate, it is very quickly going to recede into just being a legacy technology platform. And then in interesting data from CTO Edge magazine, survey of CTOs across the United States have actually shown that more than 70% of companies are planning on moving back up to the cloud and diminishing the use of tape. So you've got an enormous groundswell of movement toward online backup. And there's a great quote from one of our partners, which is that if we don't sell our customers online backup, someone else will. So why not us? And that's really the fundamental, get you in the business so that you can sell it to your customers and get that recurring, highly profitable revenue. So just putting some numbers behind all of these claims I've been making. This scenario does two things. It compares the cost of tape backup, there are very similar costs associated with a disk-based backup array, to online backup from two perspectives. First is from your customer's perspective, so what is the total cost of ownership from your customer's perspective? Second is from your perspective. So if we look at this solution, this is taken from a real customer with, I think, 8 or 9 PCs and 1 server. And the total cost of the solution was $9,000 over 5 years, and that was a $6,000 upfront purchase of hardware and software that they had to purchase, and some ongoing residual costs on annual licenses and tapes. And this does not cost the labor component that we talked about earlier, and our studies have shown that the labor costs can actually be as much as 100% of the costs of the hard costs. So you could potentially double this, but I don't want to do that. It's a very conservative model. Same amount of data being backed up online only costs the customer $1,000 in year 1 and $5,000 over 5 years. So it's half of the 5-year cost, and it's a 6th or 16% of the year 1 cost. So it's a fundamentally better cost proposition as far as your customer is concerned. Well, it's also a fundamentally better technology proposition, which we'll talk about in a few moments. But then look, if I can draw your attention to the bottom table. The bottom table then looks at the economics of online backup, and the points below emphasize that if we look at the margin to you as an IT reseller or the person actually selling this solution through to your customers, on that tape backup sale, that's $6,000 in year 1. That's a one-time sale on which typical reseller margin will be single-digit percentage points, so 5 or 6 points is typical, for a commission of only $500 on the tape backup sale once. Where if you compare that to the online backup sale, your commission it'll vary about depending on pricing. We'll talk about pricing in a moment, but typically 50% margins. Most of our partners are earning more than 50% margins. So in this example, it's the cost in question is $1,000 a year, and you as the reseller are earning $500, but you're earning that every single year. So over the 5 years, you've made $2,500 with online backup, and your customers have paid half as much compared to tape, where they've spent double and you've only made $500. So the recurring, this example really highlights that what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get you and your customers to move to a technology platform that is fundamentally more sound for your customers, is fundamentally far less expensive for your customers, and is much better for you and your business, providing you with ongoing, recurring, highly profitable revenue. And then this slide just compares, just in terms of, if there's anybody on the line who's not convinced about the decline of tape or its problems, just some brief summary points that we all know about. The limitations of these centrally architected backup solutions. Deployments is usually complex. There's usually IT staff required with tape backup. With online backup, it's a simple software package that just gets installed on all the PCs that need to be protected. With tape and disk backup, coverage is a real problem. So laptops are nearly always outside of the backup regime. Branch offices are nearly always outside of the backup regime. Any distributed data really isn't going to be protected. Whereas with online backup, all devices are connected to your backup cloud. So laptops, servers, workstations, iPhones, BlackBerries, it doesn't matter. They're all connected to the backup cloud. With disk or tape, media's got to be carried off-site. It usually isn't. Often isn't, so you don't have off-site backup. Online backup, off-site protection's inherent. Tape backup recovery is very slow, very difficult, complex, risky, and very expensive. This is a major pain point for a lot of people who become our partners, citing examples where they've had to do these full recoveries, which can take days and often don't get properly compensated for them. With online backup, recovery is extraordinarily easy. In fact, recovery can actually be done by the end users themselves. So everybody in the business can actually log onto their online backup account, search it instantly, and recover their data themselves. They don't even need to call central IT, let alone call you. So recovery becomes quick and painless. Security, tape and disk have fundamental security problems associated with them, particularly where media is being taken off site. It's usually not stored in properly secure environments. The data is usually not appropriately encrypted. The media is filled with data breach incidents associated with IT staff members taking tapes off site that then become compromised, that have thousands of employee records, etc. on them. With online backup, all data is encrypted with military-grade encryption. We've got banks and governments and military agencies as customers, so you've got incredible security of data with online backup. From a management standpoint, tape and disk is very time-intensive and quite complicated. With online backup, management becomes very easy. It's pretty much set and forget software that can then be managed remotely. And then from a cost standpoint, we've already seen this. So tape and disk, very expensive and very capital intensive. Online backup is far more affordable. From a margin and revenue standpoint, so the blue bar is really about your business. When you sell tape backup, it's a one-time commission that you make on that sale. It's usually a relatively low margin, and then you've got a lot of costs, hidden costs built in your business in supporting that customer, because it's problematic technology. Whereas with online backup, you can make up to 60, 70, 80% profit margin on your revenue, and that revenue is recurring and predictable, which is very nice from a business standpoint. So summarizing all that, what we aim to do and what we deliver time and again with our partners is to take backup from being a major pain point for you and your business and for your customers, and turn that into both a revenue center and a profit center. All right, so just in terms of the move that's underway, the overall backup and DR market today sits at roughly $10 billion a year in annual spend between enterprise, small business, and consumer. Current online backup market's only at about $1 billion, so we've still got a lot of growth ahead of us in the industry. We often get the question, is it too late to get into this industry? And the answer is absolutely not. We're at the cusp of very significant growth. We're seeing triple-digit growth among small businesses in terms of uptake of online backup technology, so it's a perfect time to be setting your business up with an online backup product so you can take advantage of that growth. And most pundits agree that online backup and various IP backup technologies are poised to capture 70, 80, up to 90% market share of that total $10 billion DR industry. So quite a large market opportunity in front of all of us. All right, so we're running a little behind schedule here, but let's turn to look at the actual SOS product and technology. I'll only spend a few minutes on this. One of the best things you can do to get a great sense of the technology is to call in, get a product demo. So our partner specialists will actually walk you through the technology so you can see it all in action, and then also if you'd like to get access to a demonstration package so that you can play with it yourself. But in general, we've taken quite a different approach to online backup, which I think is behind the reason we've won so many awards for the product, which is that we don't consider it as being just about backup and recovery. We look at online backup as introducing, although it obviously checks the box when it comes to backup and recovery and disaster recovery and protection, it also allows fundamentally new ways of interacting with your data and productivity enhancements associated with that. And it comes from this three-prong approach that we've got to product management and product strategy, which is that SOS is about protect, access, and share. We protect your data, we allow you to access your data in new and better ways, and we allow you to share your data with in various ways with businesses and colleagues or with friends. So, I mean, as an example of what I'm talking about here, access, one of the feedback we're getting from our partner network and in our direct sales organization is that access and remote access and mobile access is actually becoming one of the key drivers behind sales in this business, because now that all of my data is backed up to the SOS cloud, I've got instant access to it from any device in the world. So there's a story of one of our partners, the IT manager at a business, and his CEO calls him on a Sunday while he's on the golf course and asks him for a PowerPoint file that he prepared for a customer 2 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago. And that file was no longer on any of the servers, no longer on any workstations or devices. In the old days, that would have been a 3-day search to go back through tape archives to try and find that file. But in this case, our customer pulls his iPhone out of his pocket, searches his iPhone directly at 5 years worth of data in our cloud, by multiple terabytes, and within 15 seconds had access to the file in question, sent it to his CEO, and everybody was happy. I mean, it's a humorous story, but I think it highlights a pretty profound change in the way that we can access and interact with our data now that all of our data has been protected and moved to the cloud. So it is about much more than just backup. Got some questions here. Are these slides going to be available after the webinar? Yes, they will be. There'll be a video sent around to all of you, and in terms of whether you can use the info off them, if you call in and talk to our partner specialists, they can provide you with some of these slides for you to use with your customers. So there's a smaller version of this deck that you can get access to. Manny Mendez asks, how feasible would it be to perform online backups of headquarters IT servers and restore to dissimilar hardware at a remote location if headquarters goes down? Manny, very. Having said that, with online backup, you generally don't do full disk images, so you're not backing up all of the program files and OS files. You're just backing up data files. So you would still normally have disk images, which, if you're restoring to dissimilar hardware, you'd use a disk image to recover the base OS and apps, and then you'd recover down the data from the cloud. Okay, so just talking about some of the other product features. You can see some of the awards we've won. Up the top here, we've been PC Magazine Editor's Choice for online backups since 2006. We constantly outperform Carbonite and Mozy and others in the space with our product. And in general, that comes from our approach, which is that we build everything into the product. So we don't nickel and dime you, we don't charge you for additional features, and we've got a lot of enterprise features built into the software that come for free. So for example, continuous data protection. We're the only online backup company with a fully built-in CDP module, so the technology can monitor individual files, and the second that those files change, can then back up those files to the cloud. Local backup's another example. Although we're SOS online backup, there's a fully functioning local backup software module within the application that allows you to continue to do local backup of all the data. So that what we really recommend is a two-step backup strategy. Do a full local backup of all the machines which you keep on site, and then do an off-site backup of all the most important data. So you end up with both on-site backups as well as off-site backups. Question here, Gene Matson asks, so the data files are not encrypted? No, Gene, the data is absolutely encrypted. Private key encryption, all the data is encrypted on the machine, on the source machine, before leaving it in it. So then it's transferred over an encrypted connection and re-encrypted on our servers. But using that private key system, which we call our ultra-safe security system, that data is only recoverable to the person with access to that key, and we cannot access that data. We can't see that data. If you were to lose your security key, then the data would be completely unrecoverable. Russell Schuler asks, for the ongoing monitoring piece, how large is the memory footprint of that service? Does it impact system performance heavily? Russell, it's no, very, very light system resource requirements. So that's not an issue. In terms of just some other features of the technology, I'll draw your attention to. We've covered CDP, unlimited computers. So you can see here in this screenshot, here's an example of looking. So if you look at all the competitors in the market, they charge per PC. So to take Mozy as a good example, Mozy's pricing is $3.95 per month per seat, and then 50 cents per gigabyte per month. So if you've got an environment with 10 PCs in it, then you pay $480 per year to back up no data. That's just license fees. And then on top of that, you've got fees associated with the data. Whereas we take the opposite approach. We actually think that online backups most useful where you can monitor and manage many devices centrally from one particular application. So here you can see on the account in the screenshot, there are 6 PCs being backed up and managed from that one account, and that's a very powerful part of the software and the way it gets used. We've talked about global roaming access and mobile access. We've talked about the local backup. We've talked about the security. In terms of physical media upload, so in the case of large data sets that need to be where the upstream connection at the client side is not fast enough to, say, push a terabyte of data, then we can send in the the data. We'll FedEx out a hard disk drive overnight. The backup is then run. All the same encryption applies, and the data is encrypted and put on the hard disk drive in fully encrypted form. Hard disk drive is shipped back to us. We upload it, and then the software finishes its work, allowing you to, of how we just continue to build in more and more functionality into the platform and wear the cost of it ourselves. So unlimited versioning. We keep an unlimited version history. For file changes every day, we keep every single version. So we'll keep 365 versions a year. So if a customer wants to roll back and see their budget plans or their tax books as they looked on April 14, 2007, that's not a problem. They can roll straight back to that date and access the snapshot of their data as it appeared then. And then, whereas all the other competitive platforms only store 30 days worth of versions. Now, this is very important for businesses who are subject to regulatory compliance issues, like, for example, medical and healthcare businesses who are under requirements to keep, say, 7 years' worth of versions of their data. And then unlimited archiving is another technology point I'd highlight. With all the other online backup systems, if you delete a file from the PC being backed up, then they will delete that file from the cloud. Whereas with SOS, we don't really understand why you'd ever take that approach to product design, because more than 60% of recoveries are actually from accidental deletion. So we don't remove anything from the cloud unless you explicitly say that the content should be removed from the cloud, and we will then archive that content forever until you or the user instructs us to remove it from our cloud. So what that means is that the solution doubles as a full archiving solution. So it can be sold as a straight DR application, but also as an archiving solution. Got some more questions here. Kunli Adeg Boy asks, as resellers, is there a way we can evaluate all the features of SOS Backup? I downloaded SOS, but it doesn't seem to allow all the features. Kunli, I'd recommend you call in and talk to somebody and get some help with that. You should be able to evaluate all the features, not a problem. Daniel, I'm having trouble with pronunciation today. Ihon Beer asks, is this OS specific or doesn't it matter? Can you use this to back up Linux servers, for example? Yes, Daniel, you can. The software runs natively on all Windows environments. We've got solutions for Linux and other OS networks delivered through our Blue Sky support organization. So you should call in and ask about that if you've got questions about Linux support. Generally, though, our wheelhouse is really Windows dominant environments. So what we, if you had a purely Linux network, then we're probably not a good fit. Where we're a best fit is where it's a mainly Windows network and you've got some other technology in the mix as well. Some other questions. Russell Schuler asks, for the unlimited versioning, does 500 versions of the same file continue to eat away at the paid storage space? No, Russell, SOS provides that to you for free. So we eat the cost of that, which is, I think a very powerful add-in. And Manny Mendez asks, does it protect Exchange and SQL? So Manny, we've got what we call our complex environment support package, which is designed for providing remote backup for both Exchange and SQL. It's a fully managed service. So basically the idea is that you enroll a given Exchange server into our fully managed disaster recovery plan, and then we take over the management and monitoring of that server for you for a remote backup, and we provide that to you. I think the cost is $25 a month to manage it, to do complete disaster recovery management on a server. You would then bill that through to your customer, and we would never talk to your customer if you didn't want us to. So what most of our partners do is they'll sell that to their customers for $100 a month, and their cost for us is only $25 a month. So it's a very, very powerful solution there. That's our complex environment support solution if when you want to ask about that when you call in. Okay, so let's turn now and talk about the specifics of the SOS partnership model. So in terms of why you would partner with SOS, not only are we the technology leader, and I've got to move on, but we can talk about that all day, and we usually get a lot of questions about our technology in these sessions. But really what our view on how to succeed on the online backup market is it's about a lot more than just the technology. It's about having everything in this partner solutions diagram addressed. So we provide to you the infrastructure you need, the product and software you need, the billing support and solutions and e-commerce solutions you need, marketing support, sales support, training, and technical support. And if you don't have any of these, if even one of these pieces is missing in your approach to getting into the online backup market, then it's going to significantly diminish your probability of success. But SOS has got an offering for you in each of these categories, which really ensures that you can enter the market quickly and following best practices, which we've accumulated over nearly 10 years and with working with thousands of people like yourself to get into the market and build a high-margin recurring revenue business revenue stream from online backup services and sales. So turning to the statement I made right at the beginning of the webinar when I said that we really focus on providing a platform as a service. We build out this cloud storage platform where everything we do is completely rebrandable and completely customizable for you. So we really provide you with a toolkit of technology and sales and marketing and support solutions that enable you to get into the online backup market. So everything you see in our software is rebrandable and customizable, same with the shopping cart and the e-commerce systems on the web and the websites and the My Account portal, all the way down to the iPhone application. We can put you in the online backup business and actually give you a fully rebranded iPhone application, which is, again, sets us apart in the field. There's nobody else who can do that. And then turning to this diagram in full. So infrastructure, 10 data centers around the world, largest data center footprint of any of our competitors, product and software, multi-award winning technology, iPhone, BlackBerry, PC, Windows Server, billing solutions. We can host a shopping cart for you if you're not set up to do e-commerce and you can't receive credit cards, or you can bill your customers yourself directly and then we can bill you, or there's an API that you can integrate with. Just another example of how we've got a lot of flexibility and options for you in every element of the business. Our marketing support for partners is really fantastic. We're just in the process of launching right now what we call our Partner Resource Center, which is a full solution of marketing resources for partners. So email templates, proposal templates, disaster recovery plan templates. The entire idea is for us to be able to help you run your own online backup marketing campaigns to all of your customers, and we'll work with you to do that. We've got a dedicated account management team whose job it is to work with you for your life of your partnership with us. So you'll deal with our sales organization as you become a partner. You'll then go through what we call our partner delivery phase, when you'll work with, we've got a team of 10 people whose full-time jobs it is to get you into the market rapidly with a customized solution. And then you've got account management support for life to continue to provide you with marketing support. Similarly with sales support, we've got a sales organization that's set up so that our salespeople will actually work for you and talk to your customers with you and for you. So you're free to bring our salespeople into your customer calls to help you close those big opportunities, or just to act as product experts if that's what you need. And we've found that has really provided tremendous success for partners to accelerate their entry into this market. Very comprehensive training program. We've got 3 different types of training that we offer to partners on an ongoing basis, and then 24/7 technical support available to you and to your customers rather, on if you want us to deal with your customers. Again, we would never deal with your customers as SOS. We'd always deal with them in your name and under your brand. So who partners with SOS successfully? This is a question we get a lot, and really it's a very wide variety of companies that partner with SOS. Typically it's VARs, MSPs, computer repair businesses, data recovery specialists, ISPs, software companies. But really anybody who's selling into any of these markets on this slide are well positioned to enter the online backup market. So obviously people who are in the business of selling disaster recovery and archiving solutions, this is right in their wheelhouse. But also other big market opportunities we see among our sales are protection for laptop fleets. So laptops are so often outside of the existing corporate backup regimes. There's a huge untapped opportunity to sell online backup for laptop fleets. Same with branch offices. Obviously core server backup, so email server backup, app server backup, database server backup. And then also remote data access has become quite a hot little part of the market, as I was talking about earlier. And then in terms of some vertical markets, there's a lot of regulation, both federal and state, about data protection and data security, and the regulation's getting more and more odious and complex every year. The net of it is that there are certain businesses that are actually required to use online backup. So medical and any business subject to HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, pretty much compelled to use an online backup solution to protect and archive their data. Similarly, with financial services and accounting businesses that are subject to Sarbanes-Oxley. In the legal industry, there's a lot of state bars that have passed formal recommendations that all law firms use online backup. And then in government and education, these have been very rich markets for online backup services for a long time. So I'll skip these examples just in the interest of time. I want to go through to this. This slide here is probably the most important slide in the presentation. And what this is an example of what we call an ROI model that we will develop with you. So if there's one thing I can recommend you do, it's call in and ask about getting an ROI model built for you. And what that process entails is our team will ask you a few questions about your business, and then taking patterns of success among partners, among our existing partner base, they can give you a pretty good sense of what type of revenue you can expect to drive among your customers. So this is a real-life example of a partner who's done very well. The net position for this particular business, and I mean, just to give you a sense of this business, this is a relatively small MSP with a few employees and about 100 customers. They've built a part of their business with online backup revenue of $70,000 a year as the total run rate of revenue that they're driving from online backup now. And of that, $58,000 of that is profit margin for them. So they're making an 82% gross margin on what they're selling, which is phenomenal. They've got monthly revenue of $6,000 coming into their business from online backup, and their cost on that's only $1,000 a month. And I want to draw success also to the way they've productized and packaged up online backup. One of the biggest misconceptions that partners have when going in the online backup business is that they should price it to their customers on a per gigabyte basis. And that's actually probably the worst approach to selling online backup out there. The problem with selling online backup to your customers on a per gig basis is that they'll then focus on the price per gig instead of looking at the total solution and all the business benefits that they can drive from online backup. If they focus on just the cost per gig and then they go to a store and pick up a USB flash memory key and see such a difference in price of, well, why is a gig here and a flash key $2 per gig, but over here online backup's going to cost me $2 per gig per month. That's exactly the type of conversation you want to avoid with your customers. Where we've seen partners be extremely successful is to offer a flat fee to manage the backup requirements of an entire business. So to say to in this example, for his larger customers, he skewed up a $750 a month service and a $500 a month service, and the basic business pitch is, for a small business of up to 25 PCs, we will manage all of the backup requirements of that location. We'll provide you with on-site backup, and we'll provide you with fully off-site backup, unlimited versioning, unlimited archiving, fully managed with a disaster recovery plan that we designed for you with customized reporting and customized monitoring. That then becomes the pitch, and the decision the small business has then got to make is, right, should I adopt a total outsourcing of my backup and disaster recovery needs? Is it going to be more cost effective for me to move this entire thing out to my managed service provider? And the answer is usually yes. In that model then, the margin becomes extremely rich for you as a reseller, because internally then you can allocate the amount of storage that you need to allocate to support that business. It'll usually be in the 50 to 250 gigabyte range for your average small business. It does vary very, very significantly, but we see an average in that 50 to 250 range. That's where most customers fall in that band. And your cost on that, I mean, for this particular partner, the cost for the storage is only running at, in that case, in the $100 per month on a cost basis, but he's selling it for $500 per month. So he's making $400 per month margin. And this is an example of a particularly successful partner, but nearly all of our resellers actually enjoy more than 50% gross margin on the products they sell, powered by our technology. So number one takeaway from the webinar is call in and have and have your partner specialist build you an ROI model based upon the dynamics of your particular business. And if nothing else, that's just going to put you in a far better position to evaluate this as an opportunity for your company. All right, so on screen just a few more examples of marketing materials and rebranded materials that we can provide to you. Really anything you see that SOS has got, we can rebrand. So to the point where we've actually got a new program launch, more than 10 of your customers to attend a webinar. One of our account managers will actually run that webinar for you, so that allows you to rapidly get into the market as soon as you've got your product, as soon as you've got your rebranded product. You don't need to go through a long period of time to spin up your sales efforts. You can organize you can promote a webinar among all of your customers, and so long as you can get more than 10 customers to show up, we can run that webinar for you, which is an extremely powerful marketing tool for you. And here on screen is just some examples of some other rebranded product that we've got. All right, so before we go to Q&A, just in summary, why partner with SOS? First thing is our technology. We are the technology leader of the space, and it's extremely powerful backup technology. It's then coupled with the additional access and sharing functionality. But if any of your clients are not on online backup, they really do need to get onto it. It's the latest evolution in backup technology, and it's just a fundamentally better quality of backup and service and data protection for your clients than tape or disk can offer at a far lower cost. Price point, in terms of your cost as a wholesaler of ours, is the name of our partner program, will always be lower than anybody else in the market. So our supply cost to you is extremely low. We won't be beaten on price. Delivery and support infrastructure, despite the fact we won't be beaten on price, we've got absolutely the most comprehensive partner delivery and partner support organization in the market. Just the very fact that we have 3 different types of training available to partners, I think, is a great example of that. And then really, it's about this last point. This is all about helping you build a high-margin recurring revenue stream from selling online backup and data protection services. All right, so we'll go into Q&A now. And if anybody's got questions, please just type them. We've got a few here that I haven't answered throughout the presentation. Otherwise, if you're sick of listening to me, I'd really recommend you call in and talk to our team. I will say this: it's the end of the month, and I know that our VP of Sales, Jeff McCauley, is wheeling and dealing today and doing great deals. So if you are considering getting into the market, and you're interested in getting in the market, and you're 90% of the way to making a decision, I'd really call in right now, because there are some fantastic promotions and offers going on right now. And you can talk to whoever, if you're already talking to one of your partner specialists, you can talk to them about that, or I'm sure Jeff would love to talk to you if you're considering becoming a partner. Secondly, you've got questions here about whether there will be a recording of the webinar. There definitely will be. You'll get an email with a link to a video, I think even a transcript of the recording. And also, if you want to use some of the presentation material, then remember, you can call in, talk to your partner specialist, and you can get access to some of these slides and this content. All right, so let's go to these questions, and please invite everybody to ask any questions they've got. Okay, so Aralthea Phillips asks, can you send files to the cloud by FTP? Aralthea, no, you can't. That wouldn't be secure. So the data goes to the cloud through our client software, which makes sure that all the data is encrypted in a sandbox on the source PC prior to being shipped over an encrypted tunnel to our cloud. And really, that's the way it's the best way you want to be transferring data. You don't want to be transferring data over FTP. It's a fundamentally unsecured medium. Okay. Brian Watts asks, you mentioned iPhone application. Do you have or plan to have Android and BlackBerry apps? Do you have a mobile website to work with other options? So start at the bottom. Yes, Brian. We've got a what used to be WAP. It's no longer WAP, but we've got a mobile optimized portal which works on over 300 different smartphones. So pretty much whatever device you've got, it's supported, and we can build a fully rebranded version of that for you. So you'll have a fully rebranded mobile portal available to all of your customers. Secondly, a BlackBerry app is actually launching in August, so just I think couple of weeks from now, will be our BlackBerry app, and Android is not actually on our roadmap right now. So Android is something that we're evaluating, but we just don't have a lot of demand from our customer base. Ian Shear asks, what sort of cost for that, John, for the client webinar? Ian, that's built into the partner program, so it's just another example of the tremendous support we provide to you, both throughout the process as you get into the market. So, and I should talk about that process for a second, and I will in just a moment. But that support, that's just one example of the type of support we provide you. There's training that goes on every day and that is available to you, whether that's marketing training, sales training, or technical training, for example. So that webinar program which we're launching is just the latest example of, of the type of support we provide to you. Just from a process standpoint, if you called in and said, SOS, I want to become a partner, I want to get started today, we could literally have you in the market next week. You could be selling your own branded online backup solution next week. Now, having said that, it almost always takes longer than that, usually 2 to 4 weeks, because generally on your end, you'll take some time to make decisions about a whole bunch of questions we'll ask you. But if you're ready to accept our recommendations on everything, then we can literally have you selling in the market next week. Okay, Kirk Hobbs asks, what are the benefits of using SOS rather than, say, Intronus? So Kirk, I'd say, firstly, our partner specialists are far closer to the specifics of competitors than I am. I'll do my best to answer, but you should definitely call in and talk. Whoever your consultant is, just say, look, I'm looking at Intronus as well. Why should I use SOS? But I do know this. Our cost is a lot cheaper than Intronus, so I know that. So you'll make a lot more money using SOS, and I think that's probably one of the most important points, Kirk. Secondly, our technology certainly won a lot more awards than Intronus' technology. Thirdly, I happen to know that Intronus throttles the upload speed of all their transfers to 300 kilobits, whereas we don't, again, in this vein of we don't restrict anything in the platform. We certainly don't cap upload speeds. In fact, we don't understand why anyone would. Upstream bandwidth is one of the biggest problems facing the industry, the online backup industry as a whole. So we've got customers who upload at 10 megabits to our data center. So we've got a far faster product. But I'd say the most important thing, Kirk, is that your cost is just a lot lower with us, and therefore your margin's going to be a lot higher. Guy Harrell asks, what would be an average price for a single computer in a household? Guy, it's really up to you how you would price it. So that's, I think, an important part of our partner program is you've got complete pricing flexibility. You can sell to a home user from anywhere from $60 a year to $150 to $200 a year. It really depends on how much data they're going to back up. I think $60 is a good starting point. Hope that answers the question. Kunle Adegaboy, sorry if I'm massacring the pronunciation of your name, Kunle. What's the total cost to become a reseller? It really depends, Kunle. We've got different partner levels and different service offerings. So there are different levels of commitment that we ask you to make. It sort of depend upon your business and what you're trying to do. But again, I'd really recommend call in. Get that ROI model built, and you'll have an answer to that question very, very quickly. And like I said, no better time than to call in than right now at the end of the month when we've got a bunch of sales promotions going. Okay, Russell Schuler asks, as a startup, low cash flow, and wanting to offer branded backup solutions, what is the smallest gigabyte plan I could buy into to begin with? Russell, off the top of my head, I don't have the lowest pricing, but call in and we've got solutions. We've got lots of brand new startups who are very cash flow sensitive about getting into and wanting to minimize the amount of outlay they've got. So please call in and ask, and they'll be able to skew something up that meets your needs. Okay, Brian Watts, does your program allow backing up of data on mapped network drives? Absolutely, Brian. That's another limitation of Intronus and Mozy and Carbonite, and again, in this vein of we don't understand why they would continue to restrict, really basic features that are needed to make this product useful. Yes, we can absolutely protect mapped network drives. In fact, the way we recommend you deploy is you designate one server in the network as the backup server, and then it will back up the data that's on it, but often there won't be any data on it. Often it'll just have a bunch of mapped network drives from other locations in the network of what you actually want to protect, and that one backup server will then get all the data from the network via those mapped drives and then back it up to the cloud. Eric Drake asks, considering liability, as we are representing our own businesses, how do we protect ourselves in the unlikely event that SOS solution does not meet expectations or begins to decline? Another concern is financial protection should SOS ever close its doors. So Eric, yes, and this is actually what we refer to as our liability shield. We bear all the liability, so we protect you. All your customers, when they install the software, the EULA actually, when the customer, if they read the EULA closely, they'll see the EULA is actually executed with Safe Off-Site Proprietary Limited, which is our R&D company. So we actually bear all of the responsibility if there were ever to be an incident. But I want to emphasize this. In 9 years of operations with more than 3 million customers, thousands of partners, and nearly 10 million PCs protected, we've never had a single data loss incident. We store the data in up to 6 different locations. Not always 6, but up to 6. So really the chances of there being any issue on this are just infinitesimally small. But if there were to be an incident, then SOS bears all the liability. You don't need to worry about that. Peter Llewellyn asks, a lot of discussion on file backup. Can you speak about database backup technology, load on the server, and recoverability? So Peter, we've got lots of database backup solutions. When I say what I mean by that is through our CES service, our Complex Environment Support Service, which is this fully managed server backup solution where we take over the management of the disaster recovery program for that particular server. We've got technology partnerships in place and our own technology, which allows us to take many different approaches to backup, depending on what you want to achieve on the particular server. So generally, what we'll do is we'll use Microsoft-based technology. So if we're talking about SQL Server, for example, we'll use Microsoft-based technology to take a local backup daily and then do either differential or incrementals off-site. But it'll totally depend upon what you want to set up when it comes to protecting that server, and we'll work with you to set up a custom backup regime for that particular server. So call in and ask about our CES service, our Complex Environment Support Service. All right, so we're actually running out of time. Okay, so in terms of the Kindle promotion, the details for the Kindle are that to go in the running for the draw, you've got to call in and talk to a partner specialist and register for the raffle, and you've got to quote a promotion code, and the promotion code is JK864. So you call in, you talk to anybody here in Los Angeles, you say you're on today's webinar and you want to register for the Kindle raffle, and you give them the promotion code JK864, Juliet Kilo 864. And then we've got a couple more questions here, and then we're going to have to wrap up. Seraphin Conan asks, I operate in the US and West Africa, and my clients in Africa want their data to be available in Africa as well. Are you in favor of partner shipping with me to build a data center in West Africa? Maybe, Seraphin. Best thing would be to call in and ask to speak to Jeff McCauley, our VP of Sales here in America. Russell Schuler asks, if I was backing up a folder, just on that, Seraphin, we don't have a data center location in Africa. The nearest we've got right now is Europe. Russell Schuler asks, and this is the last question, if I was backing up a folder and no longer back it up, purposely delete it from my system, what happens to the many versions saved in the SOS cloud, saved or deleted? Saved, Russell. So every other platform out there will delete them from the cloud automatically, which can be very problematic given that more than 60% of recoveries are because of accidental deletion. So we archive that data for you permanently until you explicitly remove it from our cloud, which is another way to sell the solution. You can sell it as an archiving solution to your customers. Okay. All right. Well, that's the end of the presentation. Thanks everybody for joining the presentation today. That's been great. There'll be a video sent out to you, a link to a video of the webinar sent out to you, and we'll also be announcing the winner of the Kindle giveaway on Monday of next week. And then for any other questions, I'm just going to stick around the line for a few minutes to answer. We've got a couple of other questions that have come in, so if you've got any other questions, please stick around. Otherwise, that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for your time. So Eric Drake has written, in stating that SOS bears all the liability, is that in writing? Yes, Eric, in the sense that the customer executes a EULA with SOS, so the customer's got no recourse against you. the customer's agreements clearly with SOS, and that yielder actually states the liability. I think the total liability is there's a refund offered to the customer. A total of 1 month's service payment is the maximum payment they would get in the case of if there ever were to be a data loss incident. In a far-fetched example where I am reselling at 41 per gigabyte blocks at $20 per gigabyte, and the client has paid for 2 years in advance, 3 months after signing, SOS closes doors, what protection is SOS providing in that scenario? 1 month payment is the answer to that, Eric. Okay, no other questions so far. So if there are any other questions, please ask. Otherwise, we'll wrap up the webinar there.